Humans are strange creatures. There are people who have been together all their lives but cannot understand each other. However, there are people who only meet in a moment, become a soulmate. Reggie was a 12-year-old boy who lived in a rich mansion. His house was very big. Every morning, when he woke up, the nanny had got up early to change his clothes, brush his teeth. His mother was always busy, with a quirky personality. Gegi's life was almost entirely dependent on the servant in the house. Gegi was not only a rich son, but also a prodigy. When he was nearly 2 years old, he could read. He discovered the talent in mathematics at 4 years old. Gegi always carried a large instrument box on his back. It was a classical cello. Gegi's melodious voice attracted everyone. His work, his professional career and his gaze were completely unlike a 12-year-old boy, like an adult. Gegi didn't like Nanny to pick him up. He was interested in walking and enjoying fresh air. In order that his mother was not worry, as well as to ensure the driver's job, he gave the driver money, and told him to hide his mother. This was good for both sides. This was the daily life of 12-year-old genius Gegi. Although he had a luxurious life, he was extremely lonely. In another place in the city, there was a girl who lived a completely contrasting life. Her name was Eleanor. She was a poor and strenuous girl. She and her boyfriend lived in an old rental room. Boyfriend regularly drank alcohol. Eleanor could not stand it. That morning, she threw her boyfriend's guitar downstairs. This marked the end of this love. She packed everything up, went to the restaurant to work. Her ex still clung to Eleanor. The boss was afraid of affecting the business, so Eleanor and her ex-lover were kicked out. Not only did she lose the love, but also got fired from her job and had no place to live. Eleanor went to a wealthy house to apply for a job as a nanny. That could solve the problem of accommodation. Because the nanny suddenly quit her job and the mother was on a business trip, this cold mansion needed to find a nanny to take care of Gegi. Fate is truly miraculous, connecting two people of different ages and conditions. Eleanor removed her makeup to interview this job. She was amazed at the large and magnificent mansion. It was very lucky for hers. Not only did she have a place to live, she also had a salary. After Gegi's mother told about her work, she let Eleanor come pick Gegi off from school. This was the first time the two have met. She sat in the stand to watch him play the cello. The melodious sound touched her heart, her tears just poured out. Gegi insisted on walking home. Eleanor helplessly followed him. The first time they went home, they introduced themselves simply, "Nice to meet you." After talking, the two smiled. Eleanor praised the song, very emotional. But Gegi said the music was dead. His opinion was very negative, but in fact it was. Eleanor began to feel curious about this lonely boy. She heard the cello, opened the door. It turned out that Gegi was practicing cello in the indoor swimming pool which ran out of water. This was his habit. Eleanor asked curiously, "Why don't you swim here?" Gegi couldn't swim, nobody taught him. After hearing that, Eleanor smiled and said, "Okay, I'll..." the cello. He was like an adult, asked about Eleanor's family matters. Eleanor dodged. She just said her family had a younger brother and a younger sister. She didn't want to mention her parents. She said the ice cream is about to melt to end the topic. After finishing the examination, Gegi got a summer vacation. The mother had to go to China to support her stepfather's work. She let Gegi join the summer camp. That's where Gegi hated the most. He still used the old way of dealing with it. He gave each person in the summer camp a check so that they could put his name on the list. He took Eleanor out of a world that wasn't suitable for him. Reggie brought Eleanor to a luxury restaurant with an expensive salad. Welcome to his strange and lonely world. They sat on the sofas, watched movies, ate snacks, and laughed comfortably. The call of his ex had interrupted her. He came here. Eleanor went out and shouted at him. Gegi followed, seeing Eleanor shouting at her ex. After he left, the two of them entered the house together. Eleanor apologized for not taking care of Gegi, let him see the dark side of her life. But he didn't notice, and said life is a series of mistakes. The relationship between people, not being cared for and taken care of, but being together to warm another's heart. After all, two lonely people are more comfortable than one person. Two people sat in the exhibition, enjoyed a photo of a half-naked woman. Gegi talked about the legend of that painting. Eleanor admired his understanding, became more curious about this little scientist. This was the first time he talked about his father, who had passed away. When he was only 3 years old, all his knowledge was taught by his father. He was extremely talented, passionate about music. Of course, he also had some bad habits of ordinary people, drinking alcohol, for example. But he always built an image like a figure in mythology, that way he felt more comfortable. The substitute servant cooked bad, but she was very kind, so they didn't make difficult for her. They smiled and poured the food into the sink. Eleanor took Geggy to the subway, took him to the restaurant she used to eat, together enjoyed fried noodles that had lots of oil. Geggy hadn't played cello for a long time, he was trying to dodge. Eleanor led him to the park to walk. What a beautiful day. The kids invited Geggy to play soccer. Geggy refused. He had no friends and was used to being alone. Eleanor was the first friend of Reggie. One day, while she was eating, Eleanor's phone rang. Her father was seriously ill. She felt very panicked and worried. She wanted to go home immediately, but was worried about Geggy. Geggy suggested to return with her. After a long journey, the two of them went to Eleanor's house. Her house was messy and old, and their family was very complicated. After the father was in the army, the mother and her uncle stayed together. Eleanor didn't want to stay here anymore. They rented a hotel in the city. Before going to bed, Eleanor told Geggy about her story. She knew how to play the saxophone. In terms of music, she also had good talent. She could not go to the music academy because the tuition was too expensive. She chose to go to the big city. In her spare time, she went to the subway to perform. She knew that bastard guitar guy in here. She dreamed a lot, but the cramped city had robbed her of all the ideals of her soul. Because of the lack of money, Eleanor had to sell the saxophone. It was a surprise gift from her father. Eleanor was about to cry emotionally. Geggy didn't want to see that scene. He turned off the lights and said, "Good night." The next day, they went to the hospital, their father filled with pipes and machines. Eleanor bursted into tears. She blamed her mother and uncle. Then she pulled Geggy and went away. On the way home, they talked about the future. Eleanor was about to leave. She wanted to start over to find herself again. Geggy encouraged her to practice the saxophone to follow her dream. Eleanor advised him to re-practice the cello. They promised to talk for the last time on the lawn. They were very sad. They talked about love, and promised not to forget each other. The new nanny arrived. It was time Eleanor had to leave. Geggy prepared her a bag of snack, all of which she likes. She told him to live happily, be a good child. She planned to go back home to find the past and wake herself up. Geggy couldn't stay calm. He cried while saying, "I've known you for a few months, but I feel like I've known you for a lifetime." The two hugged each other to say goodbye for the last time. Parting was always sad. Geggy was very sad. Eleanor ate snacks in the car. She returned to her original lonely life. He began to carry the large instrument box on his back. Eleanor found a new job. One day, after work, she saw a box in front of the door. Surprisingly, it was the saxophone. He also went to a swimming pool that had never been filled with water and started performing. She also began to blow the saxophone, harmonized with the music. Like Sunday Like Rain is a movie with a beautiful name. The video depicts the strange and unique love. Meeting each other in life is a blessing. Separation is destiny. The starry sky can't be forever clear. Joy goes hand in hand with suffering. Thanks for the fate of bringing warm sunny days. Thanks the rain when parting. And after those sunny and rainy days, we become more independent.